SpaceX just did 134 orbital launches in a single year. That's more than entire countries. More than NASA, Russia, and China combined in their best years. And here's the insane part. Over 95% of those missions flew on previously used rockets. Some boosters have now flown over 30 times. How is this even possible when every other company still throws their rockets away after one flight? The answer is landing technology that the industry said would never work. Let's dive right in. Back in 2002, Elon Musk walked into the aerospace industry with an idea that made veteran engineers laugh. He wanted to build rockets that could land themselves and fly again. The entire industry ran on a simple principle. Build a rocket, launch it once, watch it burn up or sink into the ocean, then build another one. That's how it had always been done. NASA did it. Russia did it. Every single rocket ever built was a one-time use machine. So when this Silicon Valley tech guy showed up talking about landing rockets vertically like something out of a sci-fi movie, the reaction was predictable. They dismissed him as a billionaire with too much money and not enough sense. But Musk wasn't just talking. He founded SpaceX with $100 million of his own money and a team of engineers willing to try the impossible. Their first rocket, Falcon 1, was small and untested. In 2006, they launched it for the first time. It failed. The rocket exploded 33 seconds after liftoff. They analyzed what went wrong, rebuilt, and tried again in 2007. Second failure. The rocket spun out of control and crashed. They tried a third time in 2008. Another explosion. 3 launches, 3 catastrophic failures. Each one burned through tens of millions of dollars. Investors were pulling out. The media was writing obituaries. Do you know what it feels like to fail 3 times in a row when the entire world is watching and waiting for you to quit? By mid-2008, SpaceX was running on fumes. Musk had poured his entire fortune into Tesla and SpaceX. Both companies were bleeding cash. He was literally choosing which company would survive and which would die. SpaceX had one rocket left, one final chance. If the 4th Falcon 1 launch failed, the company would declare bankruptcy within weeks. On September 28, 2008, they launched. The rocket climbed. It kept climbing. It didn't explode. It reached orbit. For the first time in SpaceX history, they had succeeded. That single launch didn't just save SpaceX. It changed everything. Within weeks, NASA awarded them a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station. They went from bankruptcy to a lifeline in 1 month. But here's what most people miss about that moment. Musk didn't celebrate by playing it safe. He doubled down on the craziest idea of all, making rockets reusable. While competitors were celebrating their government contracts and building traditional rockets the old way, SpaceX engineers were designing something unprecedented. They started developing Falcon 9, a much larger rocket, and a spacecraft called Dragon. But unlike any rocket before it, Falcon 9 would have landing legs, grid fins for steering, software to guide itself back to Earth. The plan was to launch the rocket, separate the first stage, flip it around in midair, fire the engines to slow down, and land it standing upright. How do you even test something like that when there's no manual, no precedent, no one who's ever done it before? The early tests were brutal. Rockets crashed into the ocean. They exploded on landing pads. They tipped over and blew up. SpaceX released blooper reels of their failures, explosions set to music. While other aerospace companies hid their mistakes, SpaceX turned theirs into learning opportunities. Every crash generated data. Every explosion taught them something new. Engineers analyzed the footage frame by frame, adjusted the software, strengthened the structure, and tried again. Then came 2012. SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft successfully docked with the International Space Station. It was the first privately built spacecraft to ever reach the ISS. Suddenly, space wasn't just for governments anymore. A commercial company had proven they could do what only nations had done before. But Musk wasn't satisfied. Dragon was impressive, but it still required a brand new rocket every time. The economics didn't work for Mars. The economics didn't work for true space access. Everything hinged on landing those boosters. December 21st, 2015. a Falcon 9 rocket launched 11 satellites into orbit. 8 minutes later, the first stage booster came screaming back through the atmosphere at supersonic speed. It fired its engines. It slowed down. And then, for the first time in history, an orbital-class rocket booster touched down vertically on solid ground at Cape Canaveral. The SpaceX employees watching the live stream erupted in cheers. They had done what the entire aerospace industry said was impossible. But landing it once was just the beginning. Could they actually reuse it? Would it be safe to fly again? What if the stresses of re-entry damaged critical systems? 4 months later, SpaceX launched that same booster on a second mission. It worked. They recovered it again. Then they flew it a third time. The economics started shifting immediately. A brand new Falcon 9 booster cost around $30 to $40 million to build. If you could fly it 10 times, the per-flight cost dropped dramatically. Suddenly, SpaceX could offer launches for $60 to $70 million, while competitors were charging $150 to $200 million for similar missions. Launch contracts started pouring in. Satellite companies, NASA, the US military, commercial clients, everyone wanted the cheaper option. By 2017, SpaceX had proven the concept beyond doubt. They weren't just landing boosters. They were reflying them routinely. The pace accelerated. In 2023, SpaceX completed 96 orbital missions. In 2024, they launched 134 times. That's more than one launch every 3 days for an entire year. China, Russia, Europe, and every other space program combined couldn't match that rhythm. How did one private company outpace entire nations? The answer is in the boosters themselves. Some Falcon 9 first stages have now flown more than 30 times. Think about that. The same piece of hardware that launched satellites in 2018 is still flying missions in 2025. It's been to space and back 36 times. NASA's space shuttle, the previous record holder for reusability, flew 135 missions total across the entire 30-year program using multiple orbiters. A single SpaceX booster has now flown almost as many times as some individual space shuttles. After each mission, the booster either returns to a landing pad on shore or descends onto an autonomous drone ship floating in the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean. These drone ships position themselves hundreds of miles downrange using GPS. The booster falls back through the atmosphere, reignites its engines, and lands standing upright on a platform the size of a football field that's rocking in ocean waves. The precision required is staggering. The booster is traveling thousands of miles per hour, has no wings, and must land on a moving target using only rocket thrust for control. This is why SpaceX now controls over 60% of the global commercial launch market. Traditional aerospace companies are still building expendable rockets using manufacturing processes from the 1970s. Each launch throws away $100 to $200 million worth of hardware. SpaceX lands theirs, inspects them, refuels them, and flies them again within weeks. Over the past several years, SpaceX has recovered and reused hundreds of boosters. The cost savings exceed $5 billion in hardware alone. But the landing technology did something even more important than saving money. It created a launch tempo that makes new things possible. Starlink, SpaceX's satellite internet constellation, now has over 6,000 satellites in orbit. Launching that many satellites using traditional rockets would have cost over $50 billion. SpaceX did it for a fraction of that cost by reusing their own boosters. Starlink now generates billions in annual revenue, funding the development of Starship, an even larger fully reusable rocket designed to carry 100 tons to orbit. The industry isn't laughing anymore. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Arianespace, they're all scrambling to develop reusable rockets of their own. But SpaceX has a 10-year head start and hundreds of successful landings of operational experience. While competitors are still trying to land their first booster, SpaceX is already flying boosters that have been to space 20, 25, 30 times. And now the company that was weeks from bankruptcy in 2008 is preparing for a share sale that could value it at $800 billion. That would make SpaceX the most valuable private company in American history. Not bad for a landing technology the industry said would never work. So what's the real message here? SpaceX didn't just build a better rocket. They changed the fundamental equation of spaceflight. For 60 years, every rocket company accepted that rockets were throwaway machines. It was expensive, wasteful, and it made space access impossible for most of humanity. SpaceX looked at that system and said no. They believed rockets should fly like airplanes: land, refuel, and fly again. The industry called it fantasy. Engineers with decades of experience said vertical landing would never be reliable enough for commercial operations. And yet here we are. A single Falcon 9 booster just flew its 30th mission. SpaceX is launching more than once every 3 days. They've saved billions by reusing hardware everyone else throws away. That landing technology didn't just shock the industry, it made the industry obsolete. Boeing, Lockheed, Arianespace, they're all playing catch-up now, trying to copy what SpaceX proved works. But SpaceX has a 10-year head start and hundreds of landings worth of experience they can never buy. This is what happens when someone refuses to accept impossible as an answer. From 3 consecutive failures and near bankruptcy to the most valuable private company in America, all because they mastered the technology everyone said couldn't be done. What do you think comes next? Will competitors ever catch up, or is SpaceX's lead too big? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this video showed you something you didn't know about SpaceX's landing technology, hit that like button and share it with someone who loves space. And subscribe to Space Update 24 hours so you never miss the next breakthrough. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.